Hi guys, welcome to another photo walk with me and the Polaroid Now Plus camera. But before we start, I'd like to say big thanks to Focus Nordic for sending this camera to me so I can take it out for a spin. As you can see, today I'm not doing my usual street photography. This is more like some kind of landscape photography. Anyway, here is another nice scene, to my eyes at least. Let's see how it turns out in black and white. I think it should look pretty good. The previous picture was a little bit overexposed to my taste, and this one seems to be way underexposed to my taste. And I'm beginning to think that the exposure on this camera is a little bit like hit and miss. Let's try another one. I like how the trail sort of leads into the forest, and in my mind this should look really awesome in grayscale. And look at that, now it's again too bright, overexposed. I'm a little bit puzzled and not too happy with the result. This does not look like how I pre-visualized it. Let's continue. I have 4 more frames left in this film pack. I really like this green patch here, and if the camera can nail the exposure, it should definitely look really nice. But again, it's overexposed, at least to my taste, and there is absolutely no detail in the highlights at all. Let's get another frame of this same scene, but with a slightly different composition. This turned out a little bit better, but it's still, in my opinion, too bright and not enough detail in the highlights. I'm not going to give up yet, besides I still have 2 more shots left in this film pack. This one looks slightly better, but it's still a tad too bright to my taste and not exactly what I expected or pre-visualized. 1 more frame to go in this film pack. I really like how this scene looks, one tree trunk on the ground and how the light shines through the trees and foliage. I hope this turns out better than the 2 previous ones. And indeed, I think this is the best one in this particular location, but I'm still not quite 100% happy. Alright, I'm done with the black and white film, and now I want to switch back to color because the black and white really doesn't seem to work for me, at least today. I want to reshoot my 2 latest pictures in this location because I want to see if the color exposure turns out better and if I like the color pictures better. Oh yes, this looks so much better than the black and white version. The exposure is pretty much spot on and it just looks really good. I like this picture. I want to reshoot this green patch too because the previous color picture turned out so nice. And this one too, it looks way better than the black and white version, a little bit too bright to my taste, but I still actually quite like this one too. This whole location looks really nice, and I think I have to come back here with my Fuji GW690 and shoot some real film pictures here. Anyway, here's another good looking scene, and now I'm pretty confident that the color Polaroid is going to turn out just fine. And yes, this is probably the best picture so far today. Nice tonality, pretty much all over the frame, exposure is pretty good, and all in all a pleasing picture to my eyes at least. Let me walk to the water because I'd like to have one picture with some water in it. This pier looks actually quite nice, and I'd like to get the pier in the foreground and the power plant way back there in the background. I quite like the end result. It's pretty much what I pre-visualized in my head, and also the exposure this time is also pretty much spot on. That certainly was an interesting and slightly unusual photo walk for me, and also the results were slightly unexpected. I have very little previous experience with these dedicated Polaroid or any instant cameras. However, in the past I have shot thousands and thousands of instant pictures because back in the film days we used instant film for test shots and also for client approval. We showed the Polaroids to the client so they could approve the shot before we took the final pictures on film. I have saved some of the instant pictures that I shot back in the day. I have a few hundred of them here in the box. These are all from the 90s, and it's actually quite fun to look at these pictures now after all these years. Anyway, back to the Polaroid Now Plus camera. I'm gonna now share some things that I like about this camera, and then I'm gonna share some things I don't like about this camera. The first like is that this camera is really easy to use. You basically just load the film pack and start pressing the shutter. You don't have to know anything else. Very easy to use. Another like is the unique Polaroid look that you get in your pictures if you manage, or the camera manages to nail the exposure. But the Polaroid look is really nice. I really like it when it comes out right and everything is kind of right in the picture. Another like is that this camera has quite a lot of features, but you need the phone app for those extra features. But with the phone app you can do manual exposure, aperture priority, self-timer, remote control, long exposures and all kinds of stuff. But you need the phone app. And another like is the tripod thread on the bottom of the camera. If you really want to get into it and do some more serious instant photography, you can put this on a tripod and do long exposure photography or whatever it is that you want to do that requires a tripod. And one more like is that the battery is in the camera and not in the film pack like it was with the original Polaroid cameras. That is so much more environmentally friendly because you don't have to throw away the used battery each time you change the film pack. And now some things that I'm not too crazy about with this camera. The first one is that you have very little control over what the camera is doing. You can dial in a little bit of exposure compensation. I think it's plus minus half a stop or something, but it's very cumbersome to do. You have to operate the flash and the exposure compensation with the same button. With the app, like I said before, you can access more features. However, I don't think the app is very handy considering the point and shoot nature of this camera. You are not likely to fiddle with the app if you have the camera in your hand and you're just about to take the picture. But I have to say that the app is kind of nice to use and it connects instantly with the camera. So it's not that hard, but I still think it's a little bit cumbersome considering the nature of this camera. Another dislike is that the camera does not remember the settings you had in your previous shot. For example, if you don't want the flash, you have to remember to turn it off before each and every picture. The same goes with the exposure compensation. You have to redial the exposure compensation before each and every picture, which is, I think, really stupid. I think the camera should remember the last settings. Another dislike is that this is not really an instant camera. Back in the day, when we shot these pictures, it took about, if I remember correctly, for about 1 minute for the color picture to develop in 20 degrees Celsius. And if I remember correctly, the black and white was even faster. But today, these modern Polaroids, they take about 15 minutes or so to fully develop, and you're not supposed to expose them to any bright light while they are developing. So that's why I put all the pictures in my camera bag right after I took them. Something like 15 minutes is a long time to wait for an instant picture to develop. But I guess one reason is that today they can't use some of those super toxic chemicals they used with the original Polaroid film. One more dislike is that the battery in the camera is not easily replaced. So whenever the battery dies, it's really difficult to replace it. And one more dislike is that the film is kind of pricey. The cheapest price I could find here in Finland was 69 euros for 40 pictures, 40 color pictures. And while it's not super expensive, but when you consider the hit and miss nature of the exposure algorithm of this camera, it is kind of expensive because I think inevitably you end up wasting a frame here and there because the exposure doesn't really nail it, or the camera doesn't nail the exposure. However, all in all, I'd still say this is a fun camera, and I also think I probably have to try this in the future for some other genre of photography. Maybe this is not really suitable for landscapes, but I have to say that I had certain pre-visualized pictures in my mind, and I thought this camera would be able to deliver the kind of shots I had in my mind. But as it turned out, it didn't quite work out perfectly to my advantage this time. There you have it, my photo walk and my initial impressions on the Polaroid Now Plus camera. And as always, I'd like to hear your opinion too, or your experiences with instant cameras. Please do share them in the comments down below. And also do remember to hit the like and subscribe if you haven't done that already. Thank you so much. Hope to see you soon in the next one.